On Facebook. And hey, everybody, it's Outdoors Dan breaking into regular scheduled programming. It's time to go to the Unknown Files show. If you're listening on the app, thank you for doing that. And we'll get back to regular programming at 8 o'clock when we're done. We're going to have a fun show, fool. So stay there and let's get ready to go. You ready? I'm ready. All right, welcome to this week's edition of the Unknown Files Show. Hope everyone's having a great Wednesday night all across the good old US of A. Outdoor Call Radio Network is finally brought to you by the fine folks at Revelton Distillery in Osceola, Iowa. They are the official spirits of the Unknown Files Show. Did you see what I did there? Spirits, huh? Good folks down there, Rob and Christy Taylor. All right, we got a lot to do. I've been looking forward to this interview for a long time. We had to reschedule it once. This lady is such a nice lady. And I'm going to say this. I usually don't say this during the show, but I'm going to say it. Everybody listening on Facebook and watching us, if you have questions, you can message me in the comments. And you know what? You don't have to agree with what we say or do on the show. But the only thing is, I want you to be respectful, okay? And because this lady is a nice lady. And if you say something mean to her, I will drive to your front door and hit you in the head with a cast iron skillet. I'm just telling you right now because this lady's nice. So we're going to go say hi to our friend Arla Williams, and we're going to be talking about growing up with Bigfoot in Oklahoma. Arla, good evening. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You know what? I'm not as good as you are. I mean, you're glowing. I mean, I'm like run down. You know, I got my old tan hoodie on. You look like you're having a good day.
It is a good day, but every day's a good day. I've been in the woods on the tractor. So, hey, I've had a really good day.
Well, see, I can't say I was on the tractor today. That's why you're happy.
Could be. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, you're down in Oklahoma. How long are you in Oklahoma? Are you an Okie? You grow up in Oklahoma?
Oh, yeah. I was born here and have lived very little of my life outside this state. So, yeah. And I'm like maybe 30 miles from where I grew up. So, I'm not too far away from where I've always been.
So your story, I first caught one of your story was I saw the first original Flash of Beauty that Brett and Jill and Toby put out a few years ago. That was a Bigfoot documentary that was went nationwide, and I loved your story. And then I started talking to Daryl Adams and some of the other folks that you and I both know, and they told me about some of your adventures. And then I saw the second Flash of Beauty, and I got to see some other stuff. And Daryl moved to Oklahoma from Oregon, and he lives right down the road from you.
Yeah.
And he goes, I talk to her all the time, Dan. She's a hoot. And I said, can I get her number? And he was kind enough to email me your number, and I called you, and I think we were on the phone for an hour. And
Probably.
yeah, it was a great conversation. And I got to tell you, I just had a great time talking with you, and I've been looking forward to this interview for a long time. You've been in both of those features. You've been in hundreds and hundreds of podcasts all around the country, and I just love the way you like to talk about your adventures. So let's just get it started this way. How did this all start for you?
Oh my goodness, a very long time ago. When I was 6, I was at my grandmother's and I was outside sitting on the ground playing in the dirt. I had flowers and sticks and things like that. And I was always making something with them on the ground. And I heard someone walk up. And I thought it was my grandmother. But when I looked up, it wasn't my grandmother. Um, I looked at him and he looked at me, and in my mind, it was like, that's a kid, but man, that's a hairy kid. So, and he wasn't very far from me. I would think, from my memory, maybe 10 or 15 feet standing in front of me. Like he come up to see what I was doing. And we just kind of stared at each other for a little while. And then he turned around and walked back off. I jumped up, I went in the house, and I told my granny what I'd seen. And I said, "What was that, Granny?" And she said, "What do you think it was?" And so she didn't tell me anything. She wanted me to think about what it was I saw before she ever started telling me anything. And then after that, a few days, I guess, she began to teach me about them. So she knew herself. She grew up in the Boston Mountains in Arkansas and spent all her time as a kid when she wasn't after work out in the woods too. So, I've always thought that that was actually my first interaction with them. But just a few years before my mom passed, we were talking, and she said, "Arla, do you remember when you were 3 years old and she went through this whole thing about where we lived and that I was sitting on the bed and I was talking to something. She was in the closet getting clothes for the next day, and dad was taking a bath. And she stuck her head out of the closet to see who I was talking to. And looking in the open window through the screen, she saw something and she screamed and she called my daddy and she said, "Arla's in here talking to a dirty, hairy man." And of course, dad run out of the bathroom and ran through, got a butcher knife, and out the door he went. Well, I said, "Yeah, Mom, I remember that because I remember, you screaming and dad going out with the butcher knife and all of that." And she said, "Do you think that was a Bigfoot?" And I said, "Well, Mom, what do you think?" She said, "I think that was a Bigfoot." "I've seen a Bigfoot."
Your mom said that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause she was never into this. This was
yeah.
all scary stuff to her, but she was so happy that she had seen a Bigfoot,
Now,
but
and how old were you when this conversation took place?
3.
You were three. I mean, but when she goes, when you remember, when you were talking about the story, how much
Yeah,
older were you then?
I would when I was sitting on the bed talking, I was 3 years old.
Yeah, I got that, but like, were you in your 20s when you guys were revisiting that story,
Oh,
or?
no, no. This was, let's see, mom passed a couple of years ago, and it was just maybe a couple of years
Okay, okay.
3 before she just never would have anything to do with it. It scared her, for one thing, and,
So
uh
a lot of time went by before you guys had
oh,
that conversation. That's why I was asking, because
yeah.
grandma from your story, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm often wrong. Ask my wife. Uh, it, your story, your grandmother was up on all this. So
Oh,
your
yeah,
so
and
your
this
mom
was
your mom and
her
mom and dad
brother.
weren't.
My mom, no, but we didn't talk about it. It
Mm.
wasn't general conversation, and I was always taught, you don't talk about them in public, or you only talk about them with, like, my grandmother or maybe someone uh else in the family that would know. You just didn't talk about it, and mom didn't want to hear it. If it was ever mentioned, mom says, "I don't want to hear that," because it scared her. She
I got you.
just but granny, we talked a lot. She, began to teach me about so many things about them. She always said that they were our neighbors. And as our neighbors, sometimes you talk to your neighbors and sometimes you don't talk to your neighbors, but you're always respectful.
No.
That was one thing that she always impressed upon me, to be respectful. Now, I could go to her no matter what I saw. I was running off to the woods when I first started walking. I was a hard child for my mom, and it was just like I was called. I had to be out in the woods.
Okay. Hey, guy, Patrick, Rick, good to see you. Rick, give me a thumbs up. Is that audio better? It looks like we got full meters and everything. I don't hear anything skipping, but on Facebook, everybody on the network should be fine. But just let me know if that's not working for you. So, it could have been my air conditioner or my furnace going off too. But grandma seemed like she was up on a lot of this stuff from what she would didn't you tell me that she actually kind of okay, thank you, Patrick, didn't she tell you how she would like reenact how they walk, how she saw them walking and everything?
Well, actually, I have a photo of her. It When she gave it to me, we were going through some of her old photos before she died, and she died in the 90s. And I came across this one photo, and she is stretched out doing the Bigfoot walk. And I said, Gran, what are you doing there? And she just grinned and she said, I'm doing the walk. And so this was early 50s. And I mean, that photo, I has been shown around. And but yeah, she knew. I could always go to her and say anything, and we would talk. She never told me what to think about anything. She wanted me to think about it and then talk about it. And so I didn't grow up with fear. I've never had a fear of pretty much anything in the woods. So, I just don't. I'll go anywhere. So,
That's awesome, Arla. So now, did your dad see him when he got out of the bathtub and ran around? He was gone.
yeah, he was gone.
Okay.
So, and he oh, that window, of course, that house set up kinda high in the back 'cause the yard sloped. I remember that house very well. I was there when I was 3 and 4. I remember the neighbors. I lost a dog there. One of my dogs died, and I remember where it was buried. And so, for me to remember the story, it wasn't really a stretch.
No, I get it. I
But
get it.
I did not put the Bigfoot thing with it
Well, no, you thought there
until,
were people, or you related to them as people.
well, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But so it wasn't like it was something I remembered like when I was at my grandmother's and was 6 and he walked up, to me.
Hmm.
So, but
Did
I
Did
go
he
ahead.
say what did he? Oh, that's all right, Arla. I got a lot of questions as always, so forgive me. Hey, Anita
That's
Joe, good to see you. John, how you doing? Hank, yep, that's my Rupert's Roost and Peace Turkey Call hoodie. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. That's a sharp hoodie. Hi, Anita Joe. Tell Richard hi for me. Um, so when you turned around and that little juvenile Bigfoot was standing there, or that hairy person, that little hairy little kid, did you guys talk? Did you guys have any communications, or did he just look at you and walk away, or what happened?
No, I don't remember any communication, and we just stared at each other. I knew it was a boy, but, other than that, it was just a really, really hairy kid.
Yeah.
And I think that's what threw me. And that's why I asked my grandmother, what was that?
Did you ever talk to your grandma? I mean, did she see them or encounter them a lot? Did you ever ask her that?
She grew up knowing about him, yeah,
Okay, and
in the Boston Mountains. So yeah, she had her own personal stuff. We never really talked a whole lot about that, but for her to have that photo of her doing what she called the walk long before the Patterson Gimlin came out, uh, it's yeah. I got tickled at Tug Johnson. He was like, "That's got to be on a T-shirt now."
the grandma walk. Yeah, yeah, that would be an awesome shirt. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So you have did you ever and I think I've asked you this before, but I mean, when you were as you got older, did you keep having encounters with them?
They were around all the time. Well, I won't say all the time, but they were around. Um, but there wasn't the exact kind of interaction that I've had with them uh, over the last several years. I remember one time we were in the Wichita Mountains and I had four kids, and we were going to hike this 8 mile hike. Well, we were on that, and the kids, who were rather small, were getting pretty tired, and I didn't want to have to carry them. So we knew if we take off over this mountain right here, we're going to intersect the trail closer back to the point. So off we went. Well, they were there watching us.
Did you see them? Did
And
you hear them, or how'd you know they were there? Just
oh,
ask.
I saw them.
You
They
saw them.
were, yeah, there was
Just
a couple of them that were watching us. They were off in the brush and that kind of thing, cedars and stuff. Because in some of those places, there's, not a lot of cover. But yeah, they were there watching, and I acknowledged them and just continued on with my children. So yeah, and there's been lots of times in my life when I've been out and they've been around. I talk to everything in the woods. I always have. um it's just part of who I am. um I'll go to the woods, and how I say anything to them, whether they're there or not, I just go, "Hi, guys," and that's kind of my greeting. Sometimes I get a response, and sometimes I don't. I've got a audio of one who he did what I call a greeting grunt. Which is what they'll do with me. I hear that, and that lets me know, they're there. I was on my cot, my tent, and I heard him coming up, and he was like a bulldozer coming through the woods. And I heard him give the greeting grunt. That's on the audio. And so I just say, "Hi, guys," like that. And he does this goofiest call that sounds like he's trying to say, "Hello." And I started laughing. And so all of this is on that audio. I've had a spectrogram done of that. One of the guys that did a lot of the spectrograms for the BFRO heard it and asked me, could he do a spectrogram on it?
is
I said,
Arla? Is that
sure.
something that measures the language or something? The decibels or what? What? I don't know what that
Yeah.
is. Is that what that
Okay.
does?
Yes. What it does is there are areas on that scale um, that animals are put to. People, birds, all kinds of things have a place on that scale.
Okay.
And that came into what they have assessed to the Bigfoot. So,
So is that sort of like gosh darn it. Arla, I'm getting senile. Toby's buddy, that the samurai chatter, all the tapes and stuff in the set. What's his
Yeah.
name?
Are you
Ron.
talking about Ron Moorhead?
Yeah, was it similar to
Ron
what
Moorhead.
Ron had done with all that stuff he had recorded?
Yeah, yeah, Scott Nelson did a
Yeah, there you
lot of
go.
stuff, for I know both those guys, and I've known them for a very long time. Um, but yeah, it's I'm trying to think how to explain it. Everything has its own voice marker. And so, I mean, coyotes, dogs, everything
No,
does.
I get it. I mean, you can like humans only have a certain decibel range, and
Yes.
and
Yeah.
you're a human vocal cord cannot emit some. It's like that's what they were saying with Ron Moorhead's.
Yes.
It was out of the human scale. You didn't
Yeah.
human. Yeah. No, I get it now. I just didn't know it was called a spectrograph or whatever
Yeah.
that was. So
Yeah.
so and I think I've asked you this before too. The juvenile that you saw, have you
Mhm.
seen him as you've grown?
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
have. How do you and
Yes, I
how do you
have.
know it was him? Just by your do you just sense it's
I
him or
just know it's him.
you know it's him?
I know it's him. I have no doubt whatsoever, uh, that is him. And I laugh and with Daryl Adams and stuff, and my life's an Al Moon lab.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
And
I get
always has been.
yeah, I think that's awesome. Now you guys in the last movie, and I only got to see it once. Steve Scarcella, you knock it off. Steve's my buddy up in New York, Arla. He goes breeding grunt. I'd be out of there. The one that grunted at you when you were going over the mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The when you I forgot what I was going to ask you now.
Something about the second.
Oh, the second movie.
Yeah.
I still don't understand where I forgot. I'm telling you, Arla, I need a vacation bad. I do. I do. I don't know where I was going, so I'll just go to a different one. I want you to talk. Oh, I know what it was. So in the second movie, you had a retired. Was he a retired police officer that came out to see you?
He has been in different deals of law enforcement, yes,
Okay.
throughout his
Will you tell
life.
everybody that story for me?
I love that story. I had a drum making workshop. I had a friend who was a Native American, from Alaska, and she came and taught a drum making workshop. Well, I had met Richard previously, at some gatherings down in the Comanche Mountains, and he's a super guy, and he was like, "Well, I want to come. I don't know if I want to make a drum or not. Would you care if I just came and hung out?" And I was like, "No, you're welcome to come and hang out." So anyway, he spent most of his day walking around trying to see a Bigfoot. So, and this workshop was not about the
It was
Bigfoot
about
at
drum making.
all.
Yeah.
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 So anyway, later that evening, how it ended up was, I was to take him down into the woods to go with him. And we are walking down to the woods, and I get ready to tell him, no night vision. And he picks it up and he said, "Well, it quit working." So he didn't have any. Well, we go on to the woods and we're walking and he stops. And he's quiet. He's not saying anything to me, so I'm just standing there. Well, what's going on is they telepathed or mind spoke is what a lot of people call it to him. They ask him, "What are you doing with that gun?" Now, I didn't know he had his gun in his pocket. If I did, I would have asked him, "Would you please leave it in the car?" he didn't think anything about it. It was like putting your billfold and your car keys in your pocket. It's just what he had done for every day for, years. But he was like, I knew at that point that I had to tell the truth. And so he began to tell them, through telepathy, I'm not going to harm you, and he went through this whole thing with them. Well, I don't even know that that's going on. I just know, that he's being quiet and it's like he's listening. And at one point, they told him to step away from me. And he was like, he did not want to do that.
Were,
I
were,
would
were, were what were they? What do you? Were they thinking that he was a threat to you, or
no, no,
they?
they were just testing him.
Well, now did okay. Now I don't. Please don't. I'm asking questions here.
Uh,
So
you can
I would assume. Do what, Arla?
you can offend me.
Oh, hon, I would never try to offend you. I
You
love
go right
I,
ahead and
I love you to death. I just got questions. So
okay.
this, I'm sure this guy never thought in the world that he was going to have to be able to have.
No, no,
So
he did not.
okay, so at any point did he look at you and say, "Are you hearing something?"
No, he
He
did
just
not.
was. He was like in shock.
Yeah.
Just
Well, he he was very apprehensive. Here I'm taking him to the woods. I'm his safety,
right.
and he doesn't really know what to expect or anything else, but he's thinking, well, if I'm with her, I'm okay. And then, no, they ask him to step away from me. Well, of course he did it, and of course I didn't know any of this until after the fact. But what happened was we went to an area where I go a lot. I would go down there, I sing and play my drum and, pray and whatever. Well, we get there and we're right at the edge of the woods. We step in just a little bit, and they begin to come up so that he can see them.
And he
Now,
saw him.
yes, he did. Yes, he did. And in that audio, I had told him you can't take photos, but they don't seem to mind if we do audio. So, he recorded the whole thing, and you can hear us talking to each other. You hear me talking to the little juvenile kids. You hear all of his expressions, the wonder in his voice. And so, yeah, he gets to see the family. And then at the end, one I called Owl Caller steps out into the path and begins to do the owl call. And
The big Bigfoot.
yes, yeah, owl caller is what I call him.
No, that's okay. I'm just making sure we understand.
And and he's big. He's really big. And Rick at that point, he was, you're listening to him and he's talking about it. He says in the recording, okay, well, I'm going to shut it off. And then you hear this owl call. So owl caller stopped him from turning that recorder off. And then he began, he would give an owl call and then, Stuart and would talk and whatever. And then he would do the owl call again. And it's I never thought I'd see or hear any of that. I never thought I'd hear the recording. Um, so he called me, I don't know, a couple of days later and he sent me the recording and I was like, "Oh my gosh," So and it it has actually helped a lot of people who have had encounters. Um, I have people all the time say, hearing that and hearing him talk and hearing you talk made such a difference in how I went about my research.
That's now. See, I don't think I knew about the out. That I don't think I knew the last part of that, but I knew the other story. But so he left there knowing unequivocally that they're real.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
there was no doubt. I mean, he already knew, that on some level.
he knew or wanted to know.
No, I think he knew, but he didn't know what he knew when he left
No,
down
that's
there
all
in the
right.
woods.
Yeah.
It was it was funny when, we walked back up to the fire, all of the other people were sitting around the fire. They could hear the owl calls going on. They couldn't hear us talking, but one of my friends, she said when he walked up, he had a light around him. He looked like Moses coming back from getting the tablets. So he was just glowing, literally.
Huh. That's crazy. Mark Parker, how you doing, buddy? You know Mark Parker, don't you, Arla?
I know the name, yes. I
Yeah,
don't know if
he,
I know
he
Mark
yeah.
Parker.
Mark is he was in Flash of Beauty. He was the bow hunter that had the
Yes,
encounter. Yeah,
yes, yeah,
yeah. Mark's a nice guy. I like Mark a lot. So,
yeah.
hey, Mark, good to see you. So, going, you and I, I've had several conversations, and this has been a fascination of mine since I was able to read. I mean, I grew up in the '70s and In Search of with Leonard Nimoy, and that stuff, and then I started reading about encounters all through. Missouri had a rash of sightings back in the middle to late '70s. Oklahoma's been a hot spot for a long time, and talking to Mel Scahan, Mel.
Mhm.
You've talked to Mel, and if you don't know who Mel Scahan is, folks, he's a Native American gentleman in the Pacific Northwest. I was honored to have Mel on the show last year, and he kind of opened me up a little bit to saying that that it's not that there's a lot of numbers of these folks or people running around. I'm gonna call them people that are running around. He said that they move. I mean, they migrate from one area to the other. They follow the food sources. And Arla, until he said that, I don't remember anybody ever seeing or saying something like that before. That to me would explain some of the reason it's hard to track them down. Now, I know there's so many different factions of people that, again, Arla, this is just, I'm repeating what I'm hearing and understanding. There's the flesh and blood side. There's the spiritual side. There's people that I've heard some people say that they're not even of this earth. They're from extraterrestrial. I mean, I've heard in the
Yep.
last almost 2 years, I've heard everything in the world you could ever want to hear, probably. And there's I probably spend 2,000 to 3,000 hours a year in the woods, and I have not encountered anything that I couldn't explain. But that doesn't mean I can't sit there and say I know 100% that these things aren't out there. So, but here's the thing. Here's the rub. From listening to some of the biologists and stuff. Now, I was going to tell you before we went on the air. Dr. Jeff Meldrum finally got back to me,
Mhm.
and I've got a lot of respect for him. I've read a lot of his theories and notes and stuff. Now, if you don't know he is, folks, he's actually an accredited biologist or anthropologist. He's not a parapsychologist. He's an accredited professor at a major university. Is he out? Arla, is he in Idaho or?
Yes, he is. He is
Yeah,
in Idaho. Mhm.
Idaho. And I've got a lot of respect for him. And he's been on TV on Bigfoot, finding Bigfoot, and all this other stuff, But for someone to be accredited to come out and say all these footprints and castings that they've got from the 40s and the 50s, and having the footprint evidence and stuff. Now you've seen these things. You've seen these people. I don't like
Yeah.
you. I hate saying things. I got to quit saying it. You've actually seen these people and had relationships with them, but for an average person, I think it's going to take where you just are not going to be able to go out and sit in the woods for an hour or two or a weekend and have an encounter. I think this stuff is, you're going to have to be out there for several months to even have a chance of having something happen, don't you think? I mean,
Well,
unless
maybe not.
maybe.
I always tell people I'm not in control. I
Well,
can't
that
tell you,
none of us are in
what they're
control,
going.
Arla.
Now, I would love to go out in the woods with you when you decide to go out and look wherever you're going,
Hey, I
you
told
know.
I told Daryl I'm just waiting for an invite to come down there, and I would love to spend some time with you guys. I mean, it's not
Wow,
that
that'd
far
be
of a drive,
awesome.
huh?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, because I'm just telling you, even if I don't see anything, I would, I'm always out for a good hike in the woods. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
just going back, the things. I mean, how do you, when you're in these conferences and stuff? I mean, people, when you say that you've been around these people your whole life, and you don't leave Oklahoma. How far back from the first recorded big? How far back is the first recorded Bigfoot sighting? Steve, actually, it's in the Bible. There's actually, they talk about hairy creatures or giants. Some people say it's referring to the Nephilim or Arla. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, well, different people say it different, but there were giants during biblical times. Yes. Do I believe that they are from fallen
I I don't.
angels or whatever? No, I
No,
don't.
I don't believe that either.
No,
Now,
no.
now listen. You can tell me if I'm cuckoo for cocoa puffs or for thinking this or not. I think they're more. I think they're from reading all the Native American and talking with some of
Mhm,
the Native Americans like Mel and
mhm.
Don in Minnesota and some of the stuff. I just think they're more of a spiritual Native American uh, thing going on there.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they're all around the world. They're not just here.
Yeah,
They have been in indigenous people's stories around the world. So, does that make them Native American? In my mind, no. It does not make them Native American per se, as we see a Native American. I also believe that they were here before we were here. And so, are some of the things that indigenous people around the world that they learned, did they learn from them? I've had so many instances with them where they've literally showed me that they understand culture. And this, I we just passed the spring equinox, and where I go in the woods to do my prayers and whatever. I had a circle there, and I always make sure that I go on the equinox and the solstices and things. Um, but on one year, many years ago, in September, I noticed a structure that appeared from, it wasn't there one day when I was back down there, there was. Well, it was an X. There were four saplings that were alive and they were intertwined to make an X. Well, I thought that's just so cool, So then, as the spring equinox is coming, I'm going down there every morning before the sun comes up for a while before the equinox. And on that equinox morning, the sun shone through that X. Now, what does that tell you about culture? You've got monoliths, you have got many things across the world, standing stones, all kinds of things that mark the sun on the solstice and the equinox. So, what did that say to me? That said to me, they understand culture. Now, was it their culture first, or are they just acknowledging a culture that I accept? It really doesn't make any difference, excuse me, because that's what happened. That was the symbol.
Uh, how long do they live? Do you know?
They live they have a longer lifespan than humans from what I understand. Um and they do not, from my interaction with them, uh take a partner or a mate um until they're around 30 in our years. And that's how I address that, is our years. um that the family that Richard saw consists of Al Collar, who is the dad. There is the mother. I call her Moma because I've heard her singing to the babies, and she says Moma, Moma to the babies. There is an older, the oldest sibling is a female. I call her Meridia, and some of these names are my names for them. There is Indigo, who is a young male who I have interacted the most with. And then there is his younger brother, Blue. And the reason I call him Blue is he is so dark black that when the sun hits him, it has that blue look. There is a younger sister, and I just call her baby girl. So that's the family
Okay.
that Richard saw.
Okay. All right. That's neat. So I was talking to Dr. Russ Johnson. I think it's Russ. Is it Russ Jones or Russ Johnson? It's one or the other. Man, I got to get my notes. Anyway, we were talking about habitat. People want to know, well, why aren't they always seen, or why can't you find them, or why can't you see them, or where do they live? I mean, do they go to dens? Like bears will have bear dens. I mean, or do they sleep on the ground? Or they? I know people say that they find bedding or nesting areas.
Mhm.
I mean, where do they winter? Do they tell you any of that?
Well, number one, weather doesn't affect them like it affects us. You've got a flesh and blood being that's flesh and blood and more.
Yeah,
And so those things don't affect them like we think it would or would affect us. But one of the things I tell people all the time, if they're trying to reason out something about them, and it's something I was told, don't put your thoughts as a human onto how we should be. And we do that. And so we say, well, man, they got to be in shelter. They got to do this. They got to do that. Well, no, they've never lived in an air conditioned or heated house.
yeah. Well, Dr. Russ was saying that a lot of times, like he's actually had encounters in abandoned mines and stuff, where they were living in there, nobody was around, and
Yep.
they actually got ran out of one. And I go, well, you sure wasn't a bear in there denned up? He goes, Dan, it wasn't a bear. He
Yeah,
goes,
they go.
he goes,
Yeah,
bears don't throw rocks.
no. They go where they choose to go.
Yeah,
They are a sentient people who make decisions, for themselves and their family. Um, so it's not like what we are. Now, I have seen Native American elders do things in my lifetime that people would say can't be done. Well, yes, it can. I've actually seen that happen. But when people start asking me the questions about, well, I saw one and then he just disappeared, I always direct them to Ron Moorhead. And his book, Quantum Bigfoot, that's a scientific look at the quantum energetics and entanglement and things that the scientists now are coming to understand that this actually is happening. So, it Ron's a wealth of information. He and I talked years ago when he first started studying this quantum energetics and stuff. And, he asked me, okay, this is how quantum energetics and energy and stuff work. Is that like what you see with them? And, it was like, well, yeah, I guess you could explain it, that way, because you can be looking at them and they will just fade, smooth out,
So
So,
so they're going through a portal or something.
well, they could be. They could just be changing energetically, and that's
So
something we're learning.
you're talking about mass changing and going from one size mass to another mass or
It could.
yeah.
It could.
Okay.
Yeah. It very definitely could.
So are so how often in like in say like in 6 months in the ones that are indigenous or ones that live around you
Mhm.
in a sick in a year's time or 6 months time. I mean, how often do you have an encounter or talk with them or I'm just
A
it's
lot.
a lot.
A
So
lot. They prank me. They leave stuff that through the years. Oh my gosh, I call them the hairy kids. The ones that are here. They have pranked me and done things.
I love
Uh,
the garden story.
oh, I know.
The watermelon. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
My 50-50 rule. And
yeah.
they still adhere to that 50-50 rule
Tell
too.
everybody what that is, Marla.
Okay. I used to plant a huge garden every year. And one year I planted a lot of watermelons and I planted black diamond and cob jam. Those are huge watermelons. I mean, uh, black diamond can be 50 pounds, cob jam can be even bigger. And so I have this ritual that I do when the watermelons are getting ready. I watch them and I watch for the one that's getting the ripest. And because when that first one gets ripe, I'm going to bust it there beside the garden and I'm going to eat it there and enjoy it. And so I had been checking my watermelons and it would be like, man, that one's just about ready. Well, I'm just going to leave it. And then the cool of the evening maybe will take some of the heat out of it. And I'll go down first thing in the morning and I'll bust it open and eat it. Well, I went down, the watermelon was gone, the whole watermelon. And we're talking about a huge watermelon.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
where this was, it's not like somebody can just walk by and get a watermelon.
right.
So I'm like, well, what the heck? So I look around, a coyote will leave signs that they've been in there.
Well, a
Uh,
coyote's not going to eat a watermelon, though.
no, no, they'll get your cantaloupes, but they will mess with a watermelon. They'll put their mouth on them and you got teeth marks in it. But I was like, what the heck? So I went on about my business. Well, this went on a couple more nights, and I was like, what the heck now? That's 3 watermelons that have been missing overnight. So that 3rd morning, I'm looking around and I think, well, I'm going to look for footprints, to see if somebody has walked all this way into here and is carrying out 50 and 75-pound watermelons. So I pull the leaves back and I look, and where one was a bare footprint. I
Not
knew immediately
when you say
who was.
bear, it was a Bigfoot, not a black bear, but a Bigfoot print.
No,
Bear.
no, I mean a barefoot
Yeah. Okay.
footprint.
Yeah. Yeah.
They didn't have shoes on.
Yeah.
Um, and I knew immediately who was getting my watermelon. So I just stood up and I turned around to the woods and I said, okay, this is how it's going to go. You can have 50% of what I grow, but you have to leave 50% for my family. And I left it at that. Well, a few nights later, I'd picked some cantaloupes of an evening and I laid them in between the rows and I was going to take them in that night, but I forgot. So the next morning, I go straight to the garden. One of them's left and one of them's missing.
So they
Now,
they they did 50-50.
they honored that.
You
If
know.
there had been coyotes or something, they would
Yeah.
have took
You know
both
what
of them.
you should have said. You should have said, "Okay, I'll split my watermelons with you, but I want you to bring me morel mushrooms."
I should have done that.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna have a little trade going on, I want some
Yes.
morels or something back. Come on,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
or some chanterelles or some,
Yeah.
some pheasant backs or something. Get some. I'm sure they're munching on that too. You know,
Oh, yeah. They were.
have you ever? I hate to ask you this, but I'm going to. Have you ever seen? Have you ever been around when one's expired, or what happens to them when they expire?
No, I've never been around one. Um, they are pretty much taken care of immediately. And you can say, well, what did they do to them? Well, they could take them wherever they choose to take them. Um, whether that's to another dimension, whether that's somewhere where that body's going to be safe and honored, then that's what they're going to do.
Okay.
So, but yeah,
No, I was just curious, because I mean, you've had a relationship with them, so I didn't know if that was if they let you in on that at all, or.
no, I just know that those are for them. There's that culture that's kind of like the Native American. That body is
It's
an
sacred.
important
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and so there's the body. They're going to make sure that that body is respected, and they're gonna take care of it however they choose, to take care of it. So,
All right. Well, I'm going to tell you, if I'm invited to come down, I will call Daryl when I'm done turkey hunting. I'll get a hold of you guys, and I would love to come down there and spend a day or two with you guys.
yeah, it'd be awesome. We'll take you off down into the Comishes and get you lost, and then
Well, that's not going to be very hard, Arla. I get lost turkey hunting, so you can ask the guys on the TV show. I get turned around all the time, so and I won't have a gun with me. I'll leave my gun in the truck, and I would just like to go out there and listen, and I think that would be awesome. And
the Comishes are a wonderful place to go to hear things, and to see them as well. And it's so beautiful
yeah, yeah.
there.
Well, I look forward to it. If now, where are you going to be speaking? If someone, are you going to be traveling, speaking this spring somewhere, or are you staying close to home?
I in May 31st and June 1st, there is a Bigfoot conference in Tallahena. Uh, there is going to be another Bigfoot conference in Oklahoma in June. I've been asked to speak at that. I don't know yet what I'm going to do about that one. I wanted to travel this year. I'm not sure, I'm going to get to do that. I've pretty much been staying close to Oklahoma. And
I don't
so
blame you.
I
I don't
love,
blame you with the price of gas.
yeah, I just stay in what I call the flow, and whatever comes to me, that's kind of where I go. I mean, I've got woods I can walk out my door.
Or Arla, if I was able to spend some time with some folks in the woods and just relax and enjoy the quiet, I don't think I'd ever leave. I'd just stay right there and try to live my
Yeah,
life in peace. I'd be so happy with that.
yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm so thankful for my life, and that, I do live in the woods, and then I've got the Comishes that are close too.
yeah.
If I really get to want to go to the mountains, I don't have to go off a very long way to get to them.
There you go. Tony says this was a great show and you were a great guest, Arla. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you. I
Yeah, and
appreciate
and Rick said he's been saying that for years about asking for a trade for the mushrooms or whatever. So hey, I got like a minute or two here. What do they gift? What I know you told me they bring you gifts all the time. What kind of gifts do they bring you?
it. Just different things. Leaves. I love leaves, and it's not like I walk out my front door and go, "Oh, wow, no, they put them in places. They've done that for years. The other morning, I got up and I walked into my kitchen and was going to the refrigerator, and there was a leaf laying on the floor, a perfect leaf. If it'd been on your shoes, it would have been crunched up. It
Yeah,
wasn't there when I went to bed. It was laying right in front of my refrigerator. The next morning, I get up, I walk in, there's another leaf laying right in front of my oven. And I'm like, okay, guys, what am I? Are you wanting a pie or something? Yeah, just kind of
you make them.
joking.
Do you make them pies?
No, no. But
uh,
they leave some very interesting things
well,
for me.
Daryl
It's
Daryl says they love peanut butter. He goes out and he was putting peanut butter out on the trees and
Mhm.
trying to get captured. But he said he got fingerprints or handprints,
Yeah,
but he could
yeah.
never get the he could never get you could see the peanut butter would just disappear. And I'm going, what? I don't. It was like a time lapse, and it's like, why? How is that disappearing? He goes, we don't know.
That's
And it's
one of those questions.
yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah,
crazy because you sit there and watch the peanut butter come off the thing, but there's nothing there. And it's all time lapse.
yeah.
It's all on video. It's strange. I mean, it really is.
It's an awesome, awesome world to
Yeah,
be a part of. I mean, there are so many wonders in this world that so many are not just opening their mind and their heart, to see. I always tell people, shift your paradigm
yeah.
and
Well,
see
the
what.
one thing I've noticed in the last 2 years, the Bigfoot community used to be so segregated, and there was a lot of hostility. Like if you didn't adhere to this side or if you didn't adhere to that side, I mean, they didn't like you. I mean, there was a lot of anger, and I've started to see that wane over the last
Yeah,
couple of years.
yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah. When I came into this several years ago, when I was told there was a Bigfoot research group, I was like, what?
Yeah,
They're trying to prove that Bigfoot exists? No, you're teasing me. There's nobody out there researching. And then when I found out, well, all I knew to do was to share what I had to share. Well, they came at me like a bunch of piranhas. So
yeah.
I was uh, I was actually given the name the Immaculate Mother of Woo because
Of Woo.
because I openly talked about things that I had seen, not only with them, but with elders that I knew and other things. So all I know to do is to share what I've experienced. I
Yeah,
just ask people, you don't got to believe me.
But just be,
Just don't throw it out.
yeah,
File it away somewhere, and if you have an encounter or if you have a friend that you trust that has something happen, then you've got a reference
right.
for that happening.
Yeah,
So,
there you go. Arla, Rick says thanks a lot. Great stories. Please thank her for us. Great show, Dan. Thank you, Rick. Rick said
thank
tell you thank
you.
you. Yeah. Arla, if someone wants to get a hold of you or if they got questions or if they want to see what you're up to, what's the best way for them to track you down?
You can find me on Facebook, like
Arla
most people.
Arla Williams, right?
That's Arla. It's Arla Colette, but it's also I've got on there Arla Colette Williams,
Okay.
but
Okay.
my Facebook page is Arla Colette. I also have a page, Naturally Arla,
Okay.
that is on there, and it's things I make, and my books are there. I've got a couple of books, and so that's there too. But yeah, I mean, send me a friend's request. And
I'm sure you'll get some. Arla,
yeah.
it's been a treat, hon. I'll talk to you soon, and as soon as turkey season's over, I'll try and circle back with you and Daryl. All right.
All right.
All right, and you be well. Okay.
You too.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a good night.
Thank you.
You're welcome. There goes Arla. She is such a treat. All right, I got to get out of here. I am late. That is going to wrap it up for this edition of Unknown Files. This has been Outdoors Dan, and I am going to say goodbye to the Facebook.